gentleman from Colorado seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd be remiss if I didn't respond, at least briefly, to my colleague, Mr. Johnson. We have extended debates from time to time on the Constitution and our competing views of the constitutionality of different provisions. But I have to confess that I have seen Republicans do something today that I never thought I would ever see, which is apparently praising the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals and taking the position that a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision is the final word on the constitutionality of a given provision. Of course, I've served on this committee long enough to remember my colleagues on the other side of the aisle complaining about the Ninth Circuit year after year after year and making the case that simply because the Ninth Circuit had ruled something unconstitutional did not mean, as a dispositive matter, that the statute in question was unconstitutional. But in any event, I'll digress. Mr. Chairman, I want to say—
Would the gentleman yield for a moment?
I'll yield to the chairman, of course.
Yes, I simply want to point out that the so-called liberal Ninth Circuit that made that decision, the panel was composed of 2 Trump appointees who decided on the majority and 1 Clinton appointee in the minority, and other circuits have decided to the contrary. So talk about this so-called liberal Ninth Circuit is historical, but no longer the case. I yield back to the gentleman.
I thank the chairman. I agree. I think the chairman makes a salient point. And again, apparently the new standard for my colleagues on the other side of the aisle is that a singular panel decision from the Ninth Circuit is the final word on the constitutionality of a given state statute. Notwithstanding the potential en banc consideration to follow or potentially an appeal to the Supreme Court. In any event, I want to say thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this critically important emergency hearing. Our hearts are broken for the children of Uvalde, Texas. They are broken for the people of Buffalo, New York, and they are broken for the countless Americans that are being murdered each and every day in our country. Mr. Chairman, as you well know, the level of gun violence in our country is not normal, and we cannot stand for it. It is time, long past time, for this Congress to finally act and to start saving lives. My home state of Colorado has experienced the pain and the tragedy of gun violence far too often. In 1999, I was 14 years old when my high school was put on lockdown because 10 miles away, 2 shooters had entered Columbine High School and murdered in cold blood 13 innocent teachers and students. From Columbine to a movie theater in Aurora to the STEM school in Highlands Ranch, and as was mentioned previously, to a grocery store in my community last year, where 10 innocent people were murdered at a grocery store in Boulder, Colorado. Countless lives lost, children, parents, Coloradans, and Americans. The high schoolers who experienced Columbine are now grown up, and yet 23 years later, our kids continue to face gunfire in the places where they are supposed to be safe. Columbine was once considered to be the deadliest shooting in United States history at the time. And that, as we all know, is no longer the case. From Sandy Hook to Uvalde, far too many communities have been plagued by the scourge of gun violence. As policymakers, we have the opportunity today to do our part in stopping this violence. We have got to do more. We have to act. And today, we are doing precisely that. The Protecting Our Kids Act makes common sense changes to our gun laws that'll save lives. The safe storage requirements, which we passed in Colorado last year, raising the age required to buy semi-automatic rifles from 18 to 21, another common sense measure that I've co-sponsored since I came to Congress. There is more that we can and we must do, and I will certainly keep pushing for the same every day, because Boulder can't wait any longer. Colorado can't wait any longer, and our country certainly can't wait any longer. So I thank the chairman again for bringing this bill up for markup today, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose?